What's going on, wrestling fans? Welcome to another edition of Tapped In Indie Wrestling. I'm Heath Mullican, joined by my co-host Nick McDaniel. Nick, how are you today, brother?
I'm doing good, brother. Look, lots of stuff going on the indie scene. Should we make this announcement or should we tease it to the end of the show? The big announcement as far as the show goes.
Um, I say we go ahead and just tell all. I mean, why save the best for last? Let's go ahead and let the cat out of the bag.
Alrighty. So the big news obviously is, look, doing the show bi-weekly. There's some weeks, dude. It just stacks and stacks the news. So we two things are going to happen. Uh, Obviously, we were recording and we were releasing both shows on the same day. That will change. Going forward, obviously, you're going to find out from this show. We're going to drop it on Tuesdays. And if you're a member of a Patreon YouTube channel, in a minute, we'll go over some of that. You're actually going to get it early. We're going to record it prior to that. Typically, we're committing to Monday. We're going to commit to Mondays. This is when we're going to record this show. But it is going to be weekly going forward after this show. We'll have another show next week and so forth every single week going forward.
And what this will allow us to do is every 2 weeks on the show you'll get the Power Five and some of those things, and then those in between weeks it allows us to talk about some other things. But there's just so much to talk about in Georgia wrestling, independent wrestling area. We couldn't cover it all every 2 weeks, but if you want to be first, if you want to get all of the stuff, if you want to get stuff like Heath's Hot Takes, you need to go to patreon.com/tap.pod. Obviously, you need to go on YouTube. You need to subscribe. You need to hit that like video. You need to leave us a comment. Hit the bell. The bell turns on your notifications for all of our videos. And some of you people are like me, you're an audio person. We are everywhere: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartMedia, Amazon Music, everywhere you can get audio podcasts. You can find the tapped out shows, and now you're going to be getting even more tapped out shows. So that's a pretty exciting thing. We're actually recording this on the afternoon of Wrestlemania Sunday. I
Mm-hmm.
really enjoyed Wrestlemania Saturday. I know you and Myron are going to be talking about all of that, talking about how you did on your predictions. But it was not a bad night to be a wrestling fan last night.
No, dude, it was I look. I know I've got some friends who shared displeasure on some things that they didn't like, and my response is like, look, it's just like indie wrestling in the same aspect. Look, it's not every match wasn't for everybody, and there's some look. I have some strong feelings coming out of night one, so I need night two to happen so I can gather some of those and whatever. But there were some things, we were in a text group and there was some stuff that happened that went down that I was, and I mean for the positive, by the way. It was a lot of things when I had some strong opinions, and I'm excited to share those. And that show drops on Thursday. If you're a Patreon YouTube member, it'll be in there on Wednesday for you, and you'll get all of those. Anyway, but yeah, I was just It's been a great weekend from top to bottom, as far as the WWE and WrestleMania weekend goes. So
It looked to be a great week for the shows that were the independent shows that were in the area. Most of the pictures I saw, the crowds looked really healthy. I had a friend that went to a lot of the independent shows up there, and he didn't get a WrestleMania ticket till he was up there. He went for the independent shows, and so I'm interested to kind of hear, if you've got 8 shows running in one venue in the same ring, how do you tell the difference between one show
mm-hmm.
and another? But I remember one year, a couple years ago, some of those crowds were sparse
Yeah.
at the independent shows, and so it's good to see that healthy again. And we've had a lot going on in Georgia. Let's get right to it. Just a little over a week ago, we were down in Canton, Georgia for Southern Honor Wrestling 61. It was great to be there. It was great to be welcomed there. I was blamed for the crowd being a little bit down, but it was Good Friday, spring break, all those things. I thought the crowd was great. I thought the show was great. Again, if you become a Patreon, you'll hear my hot take on it. And Gary Lamb came out. I'd never heard a Gary Lamb promo live, and You talk about a guy who just wraps the crowd around his finger.
Mm-hmm.
It's a gift, it's a skill, and very few have it in independent wrestling, like Gary.
No, yeah, dude. Look, it's not the popular take sometimes, but look, Gary is part of the draw of Southern Honor. We say that all the time. He's a huge part. Let me rephrase it. He's a huge part of the draw of Southern Honor. Those are his people. Those are his fans. And look, but now I'm not saying that the wrestlers don't, because they obviously do. They love them. And you said, look, crowd, was it light? Sure, it was that, but if there's a million reasons for it to be. But sometimes, and I can't remember who I told this to. It was one of the talents. I said, the difference is sometimes, though, when you're down like that on a weekend, because of all of the circumstances, the people that are there really want to be there. And they were vocal and loud, and they were really into it. So that's the plus, I think, in that scenario.
The crowd was hot. The matches were really good. A couple of the big results from that night. Hunter James defeated Chip Day for that Jake the Snake Legacy title. One of the stipulations was if Chip Day gets disqualified or uses the Brainbuster, he loses the title. That's what ended up happening. There's no replay in wrestling. I thought it was an inadvertent kick to the referee in the wrong place at the wrong time. Chip hits him. I guess an enziguri.
Okay, I don't beat up on refs a lot.
Right.
But come on, David Weekly, you gotta be a little. And what I mean by this is, with all due respect, you gotta be tougher than that. You can't take it upon yourself and take that title off of him, because you could. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, clearly at that point you should have realized, like, he didn't mean it. It was an inverted kick kind of thing, and that's okay. All right, we'll let that story. Okay, I'm chuckling behind the scenes, but yeah, David, you got to take that kick to the face, and let it roll.
Right. And to be honest, it could have gone in either way. He disqualified Chip Day. Could have also maybe disqualified Hunter James for bringing him in harm's way. Nonetheless, Hunter James is the new Jake the Snake champion. The Grapplers won the tag team titles over Exotic Youth with a little help from a third grappler, which as soon as he got in the ring and was getting ready, we were all like, we recognize that stance. And so Gary Lamb with a little bit of revenge against Exotic Youth, and the Grapplers go home with the title.
So, question, does that mean Gary Lamb is 1/3 of the tag team champions?
That's a very good question. It depends on the contract, which is why, I don't want to get into all the legalese, but I guess Gary, if he wanted to lay claim, he could.
Yep.
And then the main event was Judas versus Joe Black in a brutal dog collar match. And Judas won. The end game jumped in. They're taking out Murder One. They're taking out Joe Black. And then one of the OG hierarchy, Chip Day, comes in, saves the day. And the match has been made Friday, May 3rd. War Chamber, hierarchy, Kenway, Joe Black, Murder One, and Chip Day versus the end game. Todd Sexton, Judas, Nick Kalen, and CT
Keys. Yep.
And I want to tread lightly here. I don't want to get us.
I'm going to say it for you. I'll say it for you, because I think we're probably on the same page.
Yeah.
Todd Sexton's bit off more, possibly bit off more than he can chew at this point.
Correct.
He didn't understand when he thought he had the numbers game. He didn't realize the original blood of the hierarchy were all in that building.
Right.
And, Chip Day might be off doing his own thing and being, because he was the Jake the Snake Legacy champion.
Yeah.
He's being the measuring stick of Georgia. He's doing, he's being Chip Day. But don't ever doubt that the blood of the hierarchy obviously runs deep inside of Chip Day.
Right.
The Chip Day's roots in the hierarchy go way to the beginning.
Right. Right.
So I think Todd's big mistake was he completely thought that when he said we have the numbers, you got to be careful, and he got outsmarted by thinking, oh, there's nobody else to help him. Dude, it was right there in your face the entire time.
Right.
And and it's for 7 months. For 7 months. The end game has been just getting one after another, getting the best of the hierarchy. And they had to go to, look, it's this, we got to solve this thing. If you're going to solve something, look, for months, and I mean months, they have been just coming up short, the hierarchy. Now that they've leveled the playing field with the numbers, now we're going to war in the war chamber. Months in the making. I mean, just built and built and built. When Chip hit through that, when his music hit and he came out, the crowd went bananas because, like I said, for months they've been waiting for the level playing field.
Right.
Now we have it.
Right. You and I go to a lot of wrestling, and it's very easy, especially going to a lot of independent wrestling, to get jaded. I don't know if jaded is the right word. We've watched a lot of bad wrestling. We've watched a lot of wrestling that doesn't pull us in. And so, for us in that moment, in the action building, to mark out, I don't get a lot of, I marked out when Chip Day came out, and that was a pretty cool moment. And we're going to have a 2-ring war chamber match. And I think it's going to be great. And I will be there. I'm excited to be there for that.
Yeah.
Also that same night, actually, Platinum Championship Wrestling had their final show in Covington. It was a sellout. We saw the pictures. Don't know if it's on IWTV yet. The line was around the building. They have announced, or they did announce, they're going to be in Conyers, Georgia, moving forward. Their next show is going to be April 19th. I think they're still going to be running every 2 weeks like they have been. But you want to go check them out, Conyers, Georgia. But good on them for a sellout and a big crowd. And I expect even more big things from them. Just this weekend, we had Kingdom Pro Wrestling down in Savannah. That's a promotion that's starting to get a little bit of momentum. They had Flying Fro versus Zach Mosley this weekend. Their next show is Friday, May 3rd. Classic City Wrestling was also this weekend. And one of the matches we were looking to for that we talked about on our last episode was Chip Day, Dominic Stuckey. We don't know the results of that. But those two guys were putting out some pretty killer promos leading up to that show.
And it's funny. We were talking about that, and let's be honest, it was the buzz of social media for the better part of a couple weeks that Dominic Stuckey's cutting some promos, and then finally Chip comes back and just guns a-blazing in his promo that he cuts. And I'm like, man, why aren't more guys like taking, I know, bear with me here, because I guess this is kind of what confuses me. I know a lot of promotions, they take guys, pre-show, post-show. Okay, we're going to go behind the curtain a little bit. And they're cutting promo videos that they drop a week or 2, 3 weeks, whatever, leading into the show. But I'm like, man, it doesn't take much. If you're just, look, you see this? This is like as good as camera as that you need
Right.
to cut your promos. It's just take your camera, have somebody else film it for you, do it yourself. Just put a little bit of work in it. It could take you 5, 10, 15 minutes. There are guys that literally I see regularly in my feed that do that stuff that I'm like, sometimes just that little bit extra. There's a running joke. What's the difference between extraordinary and ordinary? It's that little bit extra. Put it in, man.
Something I would love to see, and maybe I should save this for our next segment. Something I would love to see that I think would help on Facebook, not talking about other social media, but on Facebook, is if your promotion creates an event page and you're sharing that event page of the date, it's got the ticket link, and you're posting the promos inside that event page.
Yep.
Then if I go back, it's almost like a folder. That event page is like a folder with all, and then if I go on your Facebook page, I don't have to scroll through like a gazillion things. I can go to that event page. This is what's happening. Here's the promos. I'm not saying don't put some of that stuff on your regular page, but if you do an event page, it captures everything.
So hold on. So you're telling me you can post something in multiple places so it's easier to find?
Ooh. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I saw something today. Go ahead.
No, because I tell people all the time, like, I get it. We post on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and it's like a lot of it's the same post, but there's some variation. There's some things obviously on TikTok especially, but like, because here's what I tell people: Twitter's not our thing. That is not our wheelhouse. But you know what? I feel like I have to post there because it'll catch somebody's eye, and it does. It is, but it's just not. Instagram, the same thing. I always tell people I think Facebook and TikTok's where we get our traction, but it's not going to stop me from posting everywhere. So at least try. I mean, get it across platform.
I think it was on Facebook, and I almost sent it to you. It was a really awesome reel. Graphic was great. Music was great. They had a gazillion hashtags, and it said, go subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's no link to their YouTube channel. There's no way to get from that post to their YouTube channel. Nothing to click on. It's just, okay, I see what and I got to go type it in. And I thought.
And you made fun of me for putting a YouTube link on a channel that you can't click on the link. And I'm like, yeah, but you can copy and paste if you had to.
Right. And this didn't even have the link. This didn't even, it just said, hey, go do this. And I'm like, you're right. They didn't even have anything to copy and paste, but
hey, before we go, before we move on to I know we're going to get into some of the other stuff you want to talk about. But let's not forget too, just like a couple weeks ago, Coastal down in Savannah, that promotion is just, they're growing and getting fit. And I think all of the talents that are down there doing it, look, kudos to them. I did my best. I was trying to get down there, but the honeydew list just grew too long, and I couldn't. Because look, people don't get this. It's like a 3.5, 4 hour commute, to go down to some of these shows. So like, I was literally like, looked at the time. Oh, it's a 7 show. Like, I've got to leave by 2:30.
Right.
To
it's
get
a
down.
Full day.
It is
a full day.
And I was having to talk to my wife about like, hey, we're going to stay over. Like, we weren't going to come home. We were going to get a hotel down there, all that kind of stuff. So it's a, but anyway, I just wanted to make sure, give them a follow. I know they're doing some great stuff down there. And I've got something in the works with having somebody from Coastal coming on to talk to us about it.
Also, we didn't have it in the notes, and I want to send, shout out to Kraken Championship Wrestling. They had their first show, 286, great crowd against a good cause. Myron did the interview with Sam Skaggs. Their next show's coming up. They're down in Tifton.
I don't know if I can say this on the air publicly.
Okay.
But I did see. I apologize in advance if I shouldn't mention this, but I saw the venue at which this next event's going to take place.
Yeah.
It looks spectacular.
Gotcha.
I'll let them make that announcement, but I did see, I was privy to.
Maybe they already, let's see.
By the time we're recording, I don't believe they announced it. I just happened to get a mysterious text, if you want to go with that.
Well, I'm seeing May 17th and 18th at the American Legion Fairgrounds. That may not be the one you're talking about.
Nope, that's it. But I didn't know if it's actually. I've actually physically seen the building.
Oh wow! Okay.
That it's going to be in. So yeah, it's going to be an amazing. Hats off to Sam, Skaggs, for putting on this thing. And like I said, look at this one's going to be for another good cause. So kudos to them. Give them a follow, Kraken Pro Wrestling on social media, and keep an eye on that event as well.
And now, as we started talking, I'm remembering all the Phoenix Wrestling Experience. They're actually live today, I think, in Port Royal, South Carolina. So they're kind of doing their tour. Man, lots going on.
Now, hey, okay, guys, see, here's the reasoning why we have to go weekly now at
Right,
this point.
right.
This is the problem. Like, we knew what was becoming, like, trying to cover 2 weeks worth of wrestling, promoting 2 weeks worth of indie shows. We got to get this manageable, and the only way to
Yeah.
get there is literally to go to weekly. So that was a huge factor into it.
And like we're really not trying to like shortchange anybody. We're trying to do our best to. It's a lot to cover. Holy cow, it's a lot.
Yeah.
Next weekend, let's look ahead a little bit. GPW in Jasper, Georgia, Georgia Premier Wrestling, April 13th in Jasper. Wrestlemerica, April 13th. Krule Intent. Krule's going to be making, I don't think it's his debut, but his return to Wrestlemerica. The big match there, triple threat for the title. This has been going on back and forth. CB Suave, who calls himself the 19th champion, against another person with claim to the title, Dominic Stuckey and CT Keys in a triple threat match for the Wrestlemerica title.
Whew, that one's tough. Suave's on a roll. Look, much love we gave to him on our last episode. He's on fire, and hey, he does have the belt. I mean, I'm like, hey, he's walking around with it. We saw him at another show with that championship. So is he the champion? Dominic Stuckey claims he's champion because he feels like he never was beaten. Here's your problem, though. You're rolling out the athlete, that looks like an athlete, CT Keys, into this fight, and you'd be hard pressed to convince me that he's not walking out. So that match should just be outstanding from top to bottom. Those three guys, I think, will go out there and crush it.
My question would be: does Wrestlemerica have more than one belt, more than one title?
I think they have a Liberty Championship's what they call it. So
no, but what I mean is, do they have like multiple copies? Because there's a promotion. Gotcha. I'm not gonna mention them by name. Like there's a promotion right now that's basically defunct, and they just posted a new belt, and I'm like, you're not even running right now. Why do you, anyway? I think some people run wrestling shows just to have a belt collection of their own, and if you can get such good deals on wrestling belts now, I guess we need to get a tapped in belt, maybe.
Do they make my mind before? I've had conversations before about a belt. Yes, that actually has been a thing.
But I would want a belt that would fit us. Do they make belts, big XL belts built to fit guys like us?
Extension links. Okay. They make extension links. Yeah. So.
Okay. Well, then next Sunday, Southern States returns to Monkey Wrench Brewing in Sewanee, Georgia. And then WrestleForce, their first show of the year at Pollywogs. That's an outdoor show there in the Columbia area. So take your lawn chair. If the weather's nice, should be great. They did announce this week Bryce Cannon unable to compete. So Pepper Bottom's going to be taking his place. And they've announced lots of matches there. Shout out to Bob Keller and his crew. They always do a good job there at WrestleForce. And then we'll be getting more. Again, now that we'll probably find more shows to talk about now that we're going to be, recording weekly, and we'll be able to cover more shows. So if you're out there listening, if you're an independent wrestling promoter in the Carolinas or Georgia, hey, send us the stuff and we'll talk about it. And we want to talk about the good independent wrestling that's out there. And hopefully, especially coming off WrestleMania weekend where casual fans are watching wrestling, this is the prime opportunity to catch their attention and say, hey, did you know there's independent wrestling like 5 minutes down the road from you? Which leads me to this. And this is where we'll spend most of our time today. WrestleMania season, always tremendous. When you watch WrestleMania, when I watched last night, it is unquestionably the pinnacle, whatever you want to call it, sports entertainment, professional wrestling, performance art. It is the pinnacle. It is the top. There is nothing that tops WrestleMania. It's It's a phenomenon. What can independent promotions learn from this year's WrestleMania? If you're most independent wrestlers that I know, most promoters I know, most owners I know are watching WrestleMania. So if you're sitting there watching it and experiencing it,
Or you should be. If you're not, you should be.
that's right. That's right. And I came up with three things that I want to talk about. Three things that I feel like independent wrestling can learn from this year's WrestleMania. First of all, is this: star power is king. You look at the 2 nights of WrestleMania, there's not a lot of scrubs on there. Not everybody on the WWE roster got a WrestleMania match.
I agree. And listen, I'm not going to let this rabbit hole far, but I had a conversation with somebody. We were discussing that. I'm like, everybody. You remember there was a time when it felt like, hey, we got to get everybody on the card.
Right.
Why?
Right.
I don't like it. Used to be that way because it was pay-per-view payoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it's not that way anymore.
No.
So you gotta just earn your way onto the pay-per-view, and I know earn. I threw air quotes up, but it does. It's anyway. Yeah, that's just a whole other take of I just like guys. If you're trying to draw on an indie show, they're like, yeah, but you can't go out and pay for all these big names. Yeah, but there are guys who look like stars.
Yes. And they brought back arguably the biggest star in the world. Not the biggest wrestling star, the biggest, most recognizable person in the world. Someone who people will say, oh, yeah, if he ran for president, I'd vote for him. Talking about The Rock. The Rock brought such, and whatever the booking was, whatever. We've never seen in the 2-night WrestleMania era guys wrestle back-to-back nights. We saw the tag team match Saturday night. We're seeing Roman and Cody. A lot of that brought by The Rock's presence. So here's what I would say. Obviously, you can't book The Rock at your local promotion. But you really need to think about who you book. I would say this. If you are an independent wrestling promoter booker, if you have, what's the word I'm trying to think of? Not allegiance. If you have any obligation to book anybody, you need to figure out a way to take care of that obligation without booking them. You know what I mean? I don't care if they're your best friend from high school. I don't care if they're your wife's cousin. I don't care. You have to book the best people for your show. And if you book somebody like that looks like they just rolled out of bed and couldn't hold down a 9-to-5 job and has less athletic ability than a steel folding chair, you're trying to get people to pay to come see this.
You're talking about star power, and I want to throw in something here. Something like, here's what I told somebody the other day. There are guys, and I'm going to specifically name somebody. Alexander Lev. Like, he's younger. He's tremendously, like, if you had seen him when he started to now, the growth is just incredible. But he also is putting in the work as far as, like, the gear and the look and the presentation. That's kind of what we're talking. We're like, look, make somebody who's willing to go, yeah, I'm on the indies right now, but I'm going to make the package appear to be like a star.
Right.
Put that work in like somebody like him. And, look, there are multiple ways to do it. We're not even saying like this is the way, but look like a professional wrestler. I think that's what you were going like, and be the star power of it.
Yeah. And it's who you book. And it's how you present them. People want to see stars. Now, are there going to be people that come out to your wrestling show because one of their friends is wrestling? Absolutely. You're always going to have that. And you should have that. It's a good thing. But they don't want to pay to people. If you showed up and you had some buddies playing in a church softball tournament and you got there and they said, hey, it's $5. Nah. We went right when I graduated college. We went up. They used to do a Civil War reenactment up here, up the road. Actually, where my church is now is on that field. And we went up there to see it, and they said, "That's $10." Like, what are you talking about? $10? It's $10 to get in. I'm like, I already know who won. I'm like, I'm not paying $10 to see. Like, really, this costs money? I didn't know it cost money, so we didn't go. But if you showed up at church softball tournament and says $10, I'm not paying to watch church softball. But that's what happens week in and week out in independent wrestling. You are, and people, they're putting their hard-earned money, and you want to present people, and you want to present a product worthy of that money, of them paying that to see your show.
Yeah. I mean, like it's the listen, and I mean, I know, I get it. I'm a homer, whatever. But it's part of the appeal of of Southern Honor.
Yeah.
The lighting, the stage, everything in that package. There's a reason guys want to work there. It's because you're going to look like you could take that footage and send it to somebody, and they're like, "Oh, okay, it looks like you wrestle for it's." And we always joke about how all these promotions have their place and what they do, and they and they know their crowds and all that kind of stuff. That's But at the end of the day, they're not cheering for the guy who just, I could be that guy.
Yeah.
Like I want the guy that comes out and you're like, wrestling is built and designed for the fan to live vicariously through, a vessel in the ring of some talent. And but if I could be that guy, why would I root for that guy? He's nothing, I think that's kind of maybe where you're going, is like, hey, that guy's a superstar. I want to be him.
Right. Something that your kids are going to want to kind of aspire to. That leads to the second point, and right up the lane of Southern Honor is like, people want to experience a spectacle. They want to escape reality. Can you imagine if you went to the movies and they left the lights on, or like the sound wasn't right, or it was out of focus? No, you'd want your money back. And when people go, and you listen, you don't have to have the greatest light show in the world. It's not even about that. It's the vibe that you create. It's the feeling. I mean, how many times have you and I been to a show and it feels like it's just thrown together? It feels like, man, they don't even know who's wrestling. They don't even know where the bell is. They're still trying to hang up this black plastic to block off the locker room. Like, it just feels like no one put any thought into this.
I'll give you the other side, because everybody's thinking, oh, he's homering for Southern Fried is as far as the look, it's in a gym, it's lighting, but they've went out of their way, by the way, till they turn lights down. There's focus, the lighting's different, but it's still presented in a way. And by the way, it's because they know their crowd,
right?
And they're presenting a product to their base and to their crowd, and it is still spectacle. It's still bigger, and it's so. Like you said, we're not saying you got to look like Southern Honor, or no. There's many ways to package it. You just have to present it like these are big deals.
Yes. The whole time I was at that Southern Fried show, a month ago, I felt like at any moment a brawl could break out. I thought at any time somebody's going to come through the curtain and they're going to get jumped, and I didn't know what was going to happen. I felt like it was when I would watch wrestling at noon on Saturdays at about 12:58, this brawl would break out and they'd go off the air. That's how I felt the whole time at Southern Fried. Like, okay, what is about? So it's a way to do it. It's knowing, it's creating this vibe, this environment, this sense of the unexpected, but this sense of we are putting on a professional show. Yeah. We are going to look the part. If we're going to dress the part, we're going to act the part. And here's the thing: you got to act. If you are a performer, you have to act like and believe that you're a little bit better than the people that paid to see you.
You should, yeah.
Whether you're the ring announcer or the referee or whoever, they are paying to see you. So you have to present yourself in a way. And that to me is part of that spectacle. It's part of again, I paid my money. I'm here. At the end of the night, was this worth it? Did I feel like they cared? Did I feel like there was thought put into the matches? And this leads kind of like the third thing is, so the first thing was star power is king. Second one, people want to experience the spectacle. And then the third thing is, you don't have to rush things. We are finishing up at WrestleMania something that I don't know if it's been done. I mean, I'd have to look back 40 years where a guy lost the championship opportunity and then got a rematch again the next year. I mean, it's a 2-year,
Yeah.
2-year story. And I was thinking about it last night. Have Cody and Roman been in a match against each other since WrestleMania last year? Had they been in a sanctioned match, tag team, they may have had to pull apart. But when they locked up last night, that's the first time they locked up.
That's a good question.
Man, that's pretty. Maybe they wrestled on a. I mean, I don't think Roman does house shows.
Roman doesn't do house shows, so yeah. So that's absolutely, yeah.
So it was special, and I feel like so many times in independent wrestling, things get rushed. You mentioned earlier it was a 7-month build in game and hierarchy until it came to a point where the only way to settle this is inside the cage. It's inside this specifically designed match to settle scores. Even your show pacing. Saturday night had 7 matches at WrestleMania. Tonight's going to have 6 matches. Your little independent show, hey, you don't need 8 or 9 matches.
Okay, guilty as charged. We had 9, but showcase show totally. But listen.
Yes.
Here's the other thing. Here's what it's a funny thing that when I talk to people, I actually often say it very jokingly when they will say, "So what was wrong with the show?" I go, "It was too long," and this is from a guy who ran a 4-hour show.
Yeah. To me, I'm talking about a regular promotion. You guys, like you said, yours was a spectacle. Yours was never been done again. Never been done since then. So that was like a one night only thing. But if you're running monthly, every 2 weeks, bi-monthly, whatever, you don't have to rush things. You can let your stories breathe. You last night, I thought that was one of the best paced pay-per-views I've seen in a long time. No, I didn't feel like any match overstayed its welcome. They gave the main event plenty of time, and I never checked my watch one time in 4 hours. That's about the best compliment that I can pay. And I think people, if you give them something to invest in, again, go back to number 1. If you give them a star, if you give them good versus evil, if you give them something to invest in, it can play out. And you don't even have to have guys touch. You can have the promos, you can have the tension. It's like we want to get past the tension and we just want to get to it. And you just got to tease it a little bit. And it's like we've gotten away from that. There's no patience. And when you build that patience and you build that suspense, the payoff is going to be so spectacular. I mean, when we go down there for War Chamber, the roof is going to blow off that place.
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, and that's, like you said, it's just, I do believe that it's sometimes it's easy to become impatient. I tip my cap to Todd Sexton. I've seen year-long stories. Mm-hmm. And and when you're running every couple weeks, some months, and every month, some other months, that is really easy to lose focus and patience and try to rush it. but it's somebody like Todd that you tip your cap to and go like, dude stayed the course, didn't lose sight of it, knew where, like there are times where I'm like, okay, he knows where this thing's ending.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, a lot of times, it's at Shindig and it could be 10 months away. And he's like, I'm riding this thing out when, look, there might be 18 shows between now and then. But he's got the discipline to stick to that. And that's look, when they talk about bookers, that's why you have the conference, like Booker of the Year. I don't care. I'm always conflicted when they talk about these things, and I'll tell you why. It doesn't matter who you're signing to work your shows if you're just throwing them out there in their wrestling matches. It's why I tip my caps to guys like Todd Sexton and Dylan, who are like taking a story and like, we're writing this out. It's why guys look at this is, I don't even know if I should say this, but it's why guys are like, hey, I want to work Southern Honor. When can I get on the show? And it's like, hey, leave us your email, whatever. We'll be in touch with you in 6 months when all these stories are finished.
Right.
Right. That's just how it is. And so don't lose patience. The things to learn. And I know we kind of bounce back and forth because we're talking about Mania here, but 4 years ago, like this Roman thing, think about it. And kudos, by the way, and this, look, I know we're going to segue this. I'm probably sharing some of the national show here by saying, tip your cap to WWE for having the discipline to stick to the Roman story when people were just crapping all over Roman. They were like, oh, this is terrible. And people still are. But people are watching. They sold out 2 nights of a stadium, at WrestleMania with, kudos to them for having the patience. How about learn that lesson from, the best? That's who they are right now. Tip your cap. If they're the best, they're the king of the mountains.
If they had not stuck with Roman, would they have had as compelling a reason for The Rock to come back? The Rock didn't come back because they needed him. The Rock came back, I think, because he wanted to. Hey, here's a cool moment. I think The Rock still got the itch a little bit. He still showed he's got it. I think WrestleMania would have sold out 2 nights without The Rock, but oh boy, he sure did add a lot to it. Holy cow!
Oh yeah.
And when he tagged in last night, and I tell you, man, I can't remember a wrestler. I just love The Rock. I can't remember a wrestler growing up who was talking trash during the match. Austin did it, but like I don't remember guys who just you could read their lips and what they were saying. You're like, oh man, what's going on? And
do you want to know what's funny? Oh God, I know I'm going to catch grief for this one. There's a couple guys who do that extremely well on the Indies.
Oh,
in Georgia, Chip. Look at Nick's a fan of Chip Day. Yes, he is.
Yes.
Pardon me and excuse me for being a fan of Chip Day. Chip will talk that smack while he is just kicking you and throwing you around.
Yes.
So he's one of the good ones. Corey Hollis used to do it, and he's not around so much anymore. But he was real big about that, and I was always a big fan of him doing it. Joe Black does it a lot. So there are guys that are really, on the indies that do it really well. So that's it's kind of unique when you think about that there aren't many. But I do enjoy that. It's a really good, it's a good trait to have, I think.
Yeah, it adds to the whole thing. So again, I think I would just plead with independent promotions. This is the high point of the year for wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you and I would say, as far as this podcast, we always want the content to be good. We want the quality to be good. We're always thinking about, even today, pull back the curtain. My internet wasn't working great. So we're like, all right, I need to go somewhere else and record. And so we made it happen because we wanted to put a quality show together. And so there's just a plethora. There's an abundance of, obviously there needs to be all levels of wrestling for guys to have opportunities to work. But you got to take some pride.
Mm-hmm.
you have to take some pride in your work. You have to take some pride in your posters, in your promotion, in everything you do. You've got to take some pride in it. And I said a couple weeks ago, a rising tide raises all the ships.
Mm-hmm.
And now's the time. You gotta, we've been talking about some promotions and some Royston Dome, IWE, who are going big. They're going all in on some things. Okay, can you reach that level? Can you do it with excellence? And
Let me throw in here, and I want to bring this because I'm gonna say, when we do these shows, do we make mistakes on posts or videos and that 100% because we're human. The difference is, I always tell people, I promise you, no one beats me up more than myself on the mistakes that we make or a post that I make. The other day, like I saw a typo in something, and so I had to go back and fix them all.
Yeah.
Or, do some slip through the cracks? Sure they do. But my thing was, when it comes to indie promotions, if we're saying, hey, this is just our opinion and our thought, it's not to beat you up on it. It's literally like, because I want to cover better shows. If I'm willing to do it to myself, if I'm willing to put in the time, to look, I mean, I'm waving my hands at the screen that I'm looking at. If I'm willing to put the time and the energy in to try to make our show better, like I have a hard time when promotions are like, and don't. Think of the details, the little bitty details. Think about it. We recorded this thing 3 times for audio check before we actually recorded.
Right.
You left your house, went somewhere else, so this could look good. Like you said, it matters. Just take a little pride in what you're doing. And by the way, for the record, it stands out on the promotions that do and don't.
Yeah. And here's the thing. For me, the closest Georgia promotion to me is an hour minimum. I know if I'm going to a show in Georgia, I'm going to drive an hour. And there's times where I don't even think twice about it. I'm gone. Let's go. Even if I'm not particularly excited, I want to hang out with Nick. I want to hang out with Myron. I'm going for more than just the wrestling. But there's definitely times I'm like, man, am I really going to do this? Because I look at the show and I look at the card and look at who's going to be there, and I'm like, and do I want to make the drive? Do I want to pay the money? Do I want to subject myself to what I'm about to see?
And I want to come back to one of your. I'm sorry to cut you off here, but I want to point out, this goes to number one of the things you were talking about. But there's sometimes you'll see a poster, one guy's on the poster, and you're like, I want to go to that because I want to see that guy.
Right.
That has happened many, many times for me, where I've said, I just want to see this guy wrestle.
I'll never forget, Mark and I drove to Hickory, North Carolina for PWX because we wanted to see Zack Sabre Jr. Zack Sabre Jr. wrestled Cedric Alexander. I saw Zack Sabre Jr. on the poster, like, I'm going. And that was it. Now, can everybody book Zack Sabre Jr.? No. But that's what I'm talking about. And if you're booking guys that are on every other poster in Georgia, if I can see them anywhere, anytime, what is going to make me want to come see them at your show? If I can see them in 10 different places, and so that, there's a few guys that if I see them on your poster, I'm coming. Or there's matches, or there's, we went to that Southern State show because it was the Jimmy Rave Classic. And we thought this is a cool concept. This is a cool tournament. They're going to crown a champion. Let's go see it. So we love independent wrestling and we want it to be great. And we want to talk about it. But again, things are expensive. I mean, if you compared what I spent for Wrestlemania snacks this year, I told my crew last night, we had a big WrestleMania party at church probably 4 or 5 years ago, and I think I bought snacks for 50 people, and it was cheaper than buying snacks for 10 people this year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the economy's rough, and if you're asking people to drive to your shows, put on a good show, make it worth their while.
Yeah.
Speaking of good shows, making it worth their while, we're kind of shifting a little bit. It's been an interesting week. There's been a lot of interviews, a lot of talk, and we're recording this before AEW Dynamite on Wednesday night, and apparently there's going to be some footage shown. And I didn't know if you wanted to get into that. And there's been some back and forth.
Well,
with CM
yeah,
Punk
we talked about it a little bit before we hit the record button, because I was like, hey, maybe, I don't know, maybe. Because here's the problem: the national show that Myron and I do, we record it on Wednesdays, but it drops on Thursdays, so that show's going to record before, and it'll be after. So it's kind of hard to have that conversation, because people are like, hey, we know what happened. We watched it last night. I think our crazy take on it, and this is, again, I know this isn't indie wrestling, and we'll be out of here in a second, but I think are sitting on different sides of the fence. I think it's just hey, we're going to show some footage of, because they never specifically said it's going to show anything with CM Punk. They just said it's going to have backstage footage from All In, and that it's never been discussed before. Okay, that doesn't mean much of anything. But it's a twofold one. Either one, you're going to tease people, then you're going to disappoint people when you don't show it.
Mm-hmm.
And then if they do show it, I don't know that it's I know you had a theory why it might be a good take to actually do it, and I'll let you share that, but I don't know that it's even a good take to share it at all.
The only reason to show it, and I'm not saying I would, is if you have CM Punk come out there and he gave a pretty detailed description from his perspective of what happened at Wembley Stadium. And if the backstage security footage shows something totally different, that he did not behave in the way that he described, and I have heard through the grapevine, through the wrestling, tell a friend, tell a wrestler, telegram, whatever, that people that were there would say, yeah, man, he's not going to come off looking good if this footage goes out. My feeling is this, and we talked about this, and I don't want to get into the reasoning behind this. There are some times you're right, and you have to be mentally strong enough to be quiet and let everybody think you're wrong, and just for something to go away. And I think that's one of Tony Khan's biggest problems, is he can't not respond to every little thing on social media, every little criticism on. It's like he just has to respond to everything. And there's a lot of promoters that do that. And you have to be able to say, I'm not going to, you don't have time to respond to every criticism. Yeah. And I am finding in this, I'm having to kind of put my money where my mouth is and just kind of let people keep thinking something that's not true.
Listen, we had this conversation, and I said, look, for years, that's been my take in general. Like, there are people that are like, hey, they want to say this about the podcast, or they want to say about that about me or somebody else, or blah, blah, anybody that's been on our podcast. And my take's always been two things. One, I don't particularly generally care what other people think. I just generally don't. Right. But on the other hand, there were scenarios where I'm like, hey, if somebody who's getting a couple hundred views, is saying something, and we average 2,000 to 3,000 at that point, like, why would I open that? Like, I'm not sending anybody to go watch their stuff. Generally, I do things through a phone call. Right. I'll make a phone call. Like, I don't go back and forth on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. That's just not. I don't do that because that's just not me. But like I said, I wish Tony Khan was more that way. Because here's the thing with Bischoff that he did, he wasn't even responding to anything. Right. He was being aggressive about, strictly business ending. Anytime anybody says anything, he's responding to this. Like, dude, just roll with it. Just do you. And I say that about indie promoters. I say, like, think about this. Matt Griffin, we said this 2 weeks ago. Why is Matt Griffin where he is? It's because he puts on the blinders.
Yeah.
He just focused forward. He does what's best for action wrestling. He's running a show at WrestleMania weekend. On and on and on. And I'm like, yeah, because he doesn't get marred down in the mess, and just does what's best for him and his business, and just keeps moving forward. If backpedal up, I want to say this: if you're not giving me a payoff somehow, some way, disengage in pro wrestling.
Yes.
If you're going to give me a payoff on it somehow down the road, if we're going to get two promotions doing something and there's going to be a payoff, run with it. If you're going to work together and there's a payoff, run with it. If not, disengage and just let it go.
I think what you and I have learned from podcasting is if you are going to do a podcast, you have to be okay with people criticizing something you said that they did not even listen to.
Dude, I've gotten okay with people criticizing my physical appearance at this point. And I just don't care. I mean, like, right. I promise you, nobody knows. I used to joke, okay, we're about to sidebar into personal world, right? I used to tell people, like, hey, I was the baby of 6. I was always a bigger kid. My friends were brutal. And I've looked at people when they try to say things to me, and I will go, that's the best you got? Like, I've never heard that before.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, whatever, dude. Like, and I'm like, clearly there's a problem there. Whatever. So, yeah, I don't particularly care. And I said, look, I've heard people comments about doing this and doing that with the podcast. And I'm like, okay, well, shut up and do your own then.
Yeah.
You know, or whatever. Yeah, I'm like, you can have one too, man. It's that easy. Libsyn.com. Use the promo code TAP. You get a couple of months for free. I mean, like, hey, there's lots of room there. Just there's plenty of podcasts out there. Start your own. And but like I said, I just think people are really, really at times Charmin super soft.
And something that I've thought about probably in the last 24 hours is, I want to be very careful how I say this, is people often take what we say truly to heart. And sometimes we are dealing with people in independent wrestling who maybe have mental health challenges or struggling. And I don't want to get into it because I don't want to say anything that's going to like send you down a bad path, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I've really thought about that just in, like I said, last 24 hours or so, because I'm like, I know I'm right. I know I said what I said. I know whatever. And as long as I can sleep at night, as long as my conscience is clear, that's all that matters. I don't like winning. I don't, it's not going to say on my tombstone, they're going to say at my funeral, boy, he won some internet arguments. I don't care about that. And as long as this is fun, and I feel like if we can stay above the fray and not get into all that, it'll still be fun. And now it's going to be fun every week.
Correct. And look, we're just trying to be productive, and we're trying to be constructive. We're not trying to be destructive.
Right.
So just kind of let that be what it may, and we'll kind of roll from there. And yes, weekly going forward. Hopefully, that's why we always tell you, like, subscribe, turn the notifications on, because now every week you're going to get a couple bing, bing, at least, when the Tapped In show comes in, the indie show, the national show, every single week.
So hey, listen, don't forget patreon.com/tappedoutpod, all the YouTube stuff, all the audio stuff. And once I get some personal things in order, I'm going to be recording a lot more Patreon stuff. I'm excited about that. But listen, you got to subscribe, because we're going to be back here. We're going to be early in the week. And this is the only place, folks, where you can get the hard-hitting coverage of independent wrestling in the Southeast, where we try to cover everybody. We try to be fair. And for Nick, this is Heath. Thanks for listening to Tapped In Indie Wrestling, and we'll see you next time.